Hey, what's up, everybody? True Boxing here. Thank you for coming back to get hit with the truth. So today we're doing the what's next on William Zepeda, the undefeated lightweight contender following a dominant fourth round TKO victory over Maxi Hughes, as Zepeda stays undefeated and becomes the mandatory #1 challenger on both the IBF and the WBA. Now, before we get into that, if you could smash the like button, leave a comment, or subscribe to the channel, I really do appreciate any and all support that I can get as I continue to build my channel here. So, William Zepeda, following this win, I mean, this guy is just, he is just dangerous. I mean, the first round looked like, you know, Maxi Hughes had won the round. I mean, he really looked like he nullified the offense of Zepeda, but Zepeda was just waiting. He was just seeing what Hughes brought to the table, and then in the second round, he just took over. And he heard him, you know, and just kept pounding away, and pressing him. And he stopped them impressively. And, you know, well, the corner stopped the fight after 4 rounds. But he was just all over Maxi Hughes. Which I thought this could happen, but I thought Hughes was going to go a little longer before the stoppage. But, man, William Zepeda is just on that level. This guy is mean. So, really enjoyed seeing that. And the big question now is what's next for William Zepeda following this victory? Well, we start with Vasily Lomachenko. This fight is possible, but I don't think it's going to happen next. Here's why. I think Lomachenko is going to defeat George Kambosos Jr. soundly in May to become the new IBF champion. But I believe the IBF will grant him an exception to fight Zepeda next, their mandatory challenger. Why? Because I believe Lomachenko is likely going to fight Emmanuel Navarrete to unify titles, as I believe Navarrete is going to beat Denis Berianchek in May to become the new WBO champion. So I think they're going to, you know, Lomachenko wants to gobble up the belts. He wants to become undisputed. I think he's going to go after unification. So I don't think, sadly, I don't think Zepeda is going to get the shot against Loma next. But he definitely could. It definitely is a possibility. But right now, Loma might want to stay away from Zepeda, at least until he's got multiple titles. But Zepeda is the real deal, and he throws a shitload of punches. And I think a guy like Loma is built for a guy to beat a guy like Zepeda, but that's not going to be an easy night. And I think Loma is going to want to go after the higher, you know, he's going to want to the higher reward fight and less risk instead of high risk, low reward, which right now Zepeda kind of is for him. Zepeda's not a huge name yet. We know Navarrete is a big name, and he is knocking on the door to becoming a world champion again in a 4th weight class. This will be big for Loma and Navarrete, and it's an easy fight to make too, with both of them being on top rank. So I do think Zepeda is going to miss out on the Loma fight next, but he is his mandatory if Loma beats Kambosos, which I think he will. Then we got Gervonta Tank Davis. This is the other mandatory that Zepeda locked up. He's next in line to fight Tank, but Tank is likely going to fight Frank Martin in June. Now, if Tank beats Frank Martin, I believe Tank might have the confidence up enough to fight a guy like Zepeda, his mandatory. But will the WBA order the fight? I don't know if Tank wants to fight, and I don't know if he would even want to fight Tank. I don't know if he'd want to fight, and I don't know if the WBA would really order Tank. They've babied him so much and allowed Tank to just do whatever he wants that might not change, and they might just let him continue to do what he wants in this one. So we'll see. Right now, I have to lean towards the less likely that he's going to get Tank next, Zepeda. Then there's Shakur Stevenson, the WBC champion. Now, Zepeda's people came out because Stevenson said he's ready in June or July for a showdown with Zepeda. Zepeda's people said that they would rather go after a world title against Loma first, or, you know, Tank, and then fight Stevenson, which I think is smart, because right now this fight it would be a good size fight, but it's not the fight it would be if Zepeda's a world champion already. So, or if he were to beat a guy like Loma first before Stevenson. So I think that's a smart play, you know, because that fight's bigger later on. They're both young, undefeated fighters that potentially would be champions if the fight waits. So I think Zepeda is going to pass on the fight for now and look for something else instead. Then there's George Kambosos Jr., the former unified champ. He's fighting Lomachenko in May. I think he's going to lose that fight to Loma. If he pulled off the win, absolutely the fight would be possible with Zepeda because that would be his mandatory. But again, I think that's, you know, either a rematch with Loma or a unification bout with Navarrete. I think Kambosos would go after those before making a mandatory. And the IBF might allow either of those things to happen before a mandatory. So we'll see. But I don't think this fight's going to happen. Jermaine Ortiz, I don't know if he's returning to 135. You know, even if he did, I don't think Zepeda, that would be the style he would want next. A guy like Ortiz, maybe, maybe not. It depends on if Ortiz moves back down, but it's also top rank working with Golden Boy. Tough fight to make. So I lean towards the less likely. Then you got Isaac Cruz, who's moving up to 140 in his next fight. He's also a PBC guy. I don't see Cruz and Zepeda fighting. Raymond Muratalla. I'd love to see the showdown. Muratalla, though, is with Top Rank. Zepeda's with Golden Boy in the zone. I don't think Bob Arum would want to sacrifice his boy Muratalla next against Zepeda. So I don't see it. Then there's Zaur Abdullayev. This one's interesting. I think this fight makes a ton of sense. Abdullayev is one of those guys that's been banging around the top 10. His only loss was to Devin Haney. You know, he has a win over Jorge Linares. He's a veteran. He's decent. And I think he'd be a good opponent for a guy like Zepeda next while Zepeda waits around for a title shot. So I do think this one's possible. Then there's Frank Martin. We know Frank Martin's likely getting a shot against Tank Davis next. So not likely here. Other guys, Dennis Barianchek, he's fighting. We know he's fighting Navarrete next. I think he's going to come up short against Navarrete. I think he's going to lose that fight. You never know, but I think Zepeda could fight, you know, Barianchek. Or if Barianchek wins, I really think Loma's going to try to unify against whoever wins the WBO title. So I don't see Zepeda getting the crack there. Edwin De Los Santos. There's talks about De Los Santos and Jose Valenzuela rematching next on the Tank Davis undercard. That's not for sure, but that's what the talk is. He's also a PBC guy, so I don't see him and Zepeda locking up. Angel Fierro, number 4 in the WBO. Not a big-time name. Maybe Zepeda might fight him. It might be too risky of a fight because he's not a big name. He already dismantled Maxi Hughes, and then there's Floyd Schofield, who just got a win as well, stayed undefeated. Right now, I'm leaning towards Zepeda to likely stay busy. You know, maybe he'll get a decent name next, but I also think a title shot could happen. It's kind of just up in the air, and it's also up to what the governing bodies want to order. If the IBF or the WBA, after Tank and Lomachenko, Kambosos, after their title fights in May and June happen, those two governing bodies might order them to fight, you know, what's his name, Zepeda. But I don't believe it's going to be the IBF because I think Lomachenko, if he wins, which I think he's a strong favorite over Kambosos, I think he's going to go after whoever the WBO champion is to unify belts. And I think the IBF will let him. Then the WBA has just, like I said, they've always babied Tank Davis. So I can really see them not you know, making Davis fight next against William Zepeda. But I could be wrong. They might just surprise people and order one or both of those guys to defend against him. So we'll see. But good things are to come for William Zepeda. And I really wouldn't be surprised, you know, for him to take a risk and say, fuck it, and fight Shakur Stevenson too. That's how good and confident he looks. So that's it. That's what I got. That's my what's next on undefeated lightweight contender William Zepeda, following a dominating 4th round TKO victory over Maxi Hughes, as he became the mandatory IBF and WBA challenger in both those governing bodies. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, smash the like button, leave a comment, or subscribe to the channel. I appreciate any and all support. This is True Boxing. You've been hit with the truth.